The fluorescent lights in my auto shop buzzed like angry wasps as I slid out from under Mrs. Patterson's ancient Honda Civic. My name's Ethan Cross, and at 43 I figured I'd seen every kind of mechanical problem this Rust Belt city could throw at me. What I hadn't expected was the text that would blow up my 8-year marriage. My phone buzzed against the concrete floor where I'd left it. The screen showed an unknown number, and for a split second, I almost ignored it. Could have been another customer complaining about my prices, or maybe someone trying to sell me extended warranties on tools I'd already owned for a decade. Instead, I wiped my greasy hands on my coveralls and picked it up. "I don't want to upset you, but your wife has lovers." I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I read them again. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. "Who is this?" I typed back, my fingers suddenly clumsy on the screen. The response came quickly. "Natalie, Monica's friend from yoga." Natalie. I knew that name, knew that face, the gorgeous single woman I'd met a few times at Monica's work parties and social gatherings. Tall, blonde, with the kind of confident smile that made married men like me look away quickly and feel guilty about it later. She was the type of woman who turned heads in restaurants and made other women unconsciously check their makeup. "How do you know this?" I managed to type. What came next made my stomach drop through the concrete floor. Photos, timestamps. Monica with different men at hotels, restaurants, coffee shops. Some of the pictures were from months ago. My wife of 8 years, the woman who'd grown distant and cold over the past year, caught in intimate moments with strangers. I sat down hard on my rolling stool, the phone trembling in my hands. There was Monica laughing with some guy in a suit at the Riverside Hotel. There she was holding hands with a different man outside Cafe Luna downtown. The timestamps showed a pattern going back at least 6 months. "Thanks for telling me," I finally typed. "But why help me? What do you want?" I waited, my heart pounding so loud I was sure the neighbors could hear it. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. "You. Only you." I stared at those 3 words until they burned into my retinas. What the hell did that mean? Another message followed quickly. "I've wanted you since we met, but you're married. Now you deserve to know the truth." My hands were shaking as I typed back, "What do you mean?" "I've had feelings for you for a long time, Ethan. I've watched Monica treat you like you don't exist, and I couldn't stand it anymore. When I found out about the affairs, I knew I had to tell you." I set the phone down and walked to the small window overlooking the parking lot. The October sky was gray and threatening rain, matching my mood perfectly. Monica had been working late more often, going to more girls' nights, taking weekend trips to visit her sister in Cleveland. Trips I was never invited on. The phone buzzed again. "Can we meet? I think we should talk about this in person." I picked up the phone, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. This was dangerous territory. Meeting with Natalie, especially now, felt like stepping off a cliff. But I needed answers, and apparently she had them. "Tomorrow, Cafe Luna downtown, noon." "I'll be there," she replied immediately. I closed the shop early that night, something I never did. The drive home felt like swimming through molasses. Every red light lasted forever. Every familiar street looked foreign. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd convinced myself this was all some elaborate mistake. Monica's car wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. She'd texted earlier about working late on a big project, the same excuse she'd been using for months. Inside our modest 2-story house, everything looked exactly the same. Monica's design magazines stacked neatly on the coffee table, her expensive shoes lined up by the front door, the wedding photo on the mantel where we both looked young and hopeful and stupid. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my recliner, staring at those photos on my phone. In one of them, Monica was kissing some guy I'd never seen before, really kissing him, not some friendly peck on the cheek. Her hand was tangled in his hair, and she had that expression I remembered from our early dating days, the expression she hadn't worn for me in years. Monica came home at 11:30, smelling like wine and expensive cologne that wasn't mine. "How was work?" I asked from the living room. "Exhausting," she called back, already heading upstairs. "Big presentation tomorrow. I'm going straight to bed." She didn't ask about my day. She didn't even look at me. I sat in that chair until 3 in the morning, bourbon burning my throat, staring at the evidence of my wife's betrayal. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I was going to meet Natalie, and I was going to find out exactly how deep this rabbit hole went. Cafe Luna was packed for a Saturday afternoon, which was probably why Natalie had suggested it. Public places were safer for conversations like this. I spotted her immediately at a corner table, wearing a simple black dress that somehow made every other woman in the place look overdressed. She'd ordered coffee for both of us. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. Her voice was softer than I remembered, nervous. "Thank you for the photos," I said, then immediately felt stupid. Thank you for telling me, even though it sucks." She smiled sadly. "I wrestled with it for weeks. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't watch this anymore." "How long have you known?" "About the affairs?" "A couple months. I saw her with someone at the Riverside Hotel when I was meeting a client there. At first, I thought maybe it was work-related, but then I saw how they were touching each other." I took a sip of coffee. It was good coffee, better than the instant stuff I made at the shop. "How many guys are there?" "At least 3 that I've seen, maybe more." Natalie reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. I documented everything I could: dates, times, locations. "I know it sounds creepy, but I thought you'd need proof." She was right. In divorce court, proof was everything. I scrolled through her evidence folder, my stomach churning with each new photo. Monica at dinner with a guy who looked like a male model. Monica getting into a car with someone else outside a downtown hotel. Monica kissing yet another man in the parking lot of her office building. "Why?" I asked, more to myself than to Natalie. "Because she's selfish," Natalie said bluntly. "She wants the security of marriage and the excitement of affairs. She wants to have her cake and eat it too." I looked up at her. "And what do you want?" Natalie's cheeks flushed pink. "I told you last night. I want you. You barely know me." "I know enough." She leaned forward slightly. "I know you work 16-hour days to keep your business afloat. I know you still open car doors for women and say please and thank you to waitresses. I know you love old movies and you can quote The Godfather from memory. I know Monica doesn't appreciate any of it." "How do you know about The Godfather?" "You quoted it at her birthday party last year. The line about keeping your friends close and your enemies closer." Monica rolled her eyes, but I thought it was charming. I remembered that party. Monica had been annoyed with me all night for some reason I never figured out. Probably because one of her boyfriends was there and she couldn't flirt openly. "This is crazy," I said. "Which part? That your wife is cheating or that I'm attracted to you?" "Both. All of it." Natalie reached across the table and touched my hand. Her skin was warm and soft, nothing like Monica's cold, manicured fingers. "It doesn't have to be crazy. It can be simple. She's been unfaithful and you deserve better." "Are you suggesting I cheat too?" "I'm suggesting you stop pretending you're in a real marriage." That hit like a punch to the gut because it was true. Monica and I had been roommates for months, maybe longer. We barely talked except about bills and schedules. We hadn't been intimate since my birthday in March, and even then, it felt like she was doing me a favor. "If I confront her with this," I said, gesturing at the photos, "it's over. The marriage, everything." "Isn't it already over?" I sat back in my chair, processing. Around us, the cafe hummed with normal people having normal conversations about normal problems. Nobody else was discovering their spouse was a serial cheater while being propositioned by their wife's gorgeous friend. What happens if I say yes? I asked. To confronting Monica? Or to me? Both. Natalie smiled. And for the first time since I'd known her, it wasn't sad or nervous. It was confident and warm and full of promise. Then you stop being a victim and start being happy. We talked for another hour. She told me about her yoga studio, how she'd built it from nothing after her divorce 3 years ago. I told her about my shop, about the dream of expanding into classic car restoration, if I could ever get ahead financially. She listened like my words mattered, like my dreams were worth something. When we finally left the cafe, I felt like I was walking in someone else's life. The October air was crisp and clean, and for the first time in months, I could breathe properly. What now? I asked as we stood by our cars. Now you decide what kind of man you want to be, Natalie said. The kind who lets people walk all over him, or the kind who fights back. She kissed my cheek, quick and soft, then got in her car and drove away. I stood in the parking lot for 10 minutes, touching the spot where her lips had been, knowing that everything was about to change. I didn't sleep that Saturday night. Instead, I sat in my home office, a converted spare bedroom that Monica never entered, and planned my approach. The photos were damning, but I needed more. I needed to understand the scope of her betrayal before I made my move. Sunday morning, Monica announced she was going to brunch with her sister. Another lie, probably, but I didn't challenge it. Instead, I spent the day going through our joint credit card statements, phone bills, and bank records. What I found made me sick. Charges at expensive restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel rooms booked on nights she claimed to be working late. Payments to a lingerie boutique for items I'd never seen her wear. She'd been financing her affairs with our money I'd earned fixing other people's broken cars while she played house with her boyfriends. Monday evening, I was ready. Monica came home at her usual time, around 7:30. She looked beautiful, as always. Her auburn hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her designer outfit probably worth more than most people made in a week. Looking at her now, knowing what I knew, I wondered how I'd been so blind. How was work? I asked, the same question I asked every night. Busy, she said, setting down her purse and checking her phone. We're launching the Henderson campaign next week, so everyone's stressed. Must be why you had to work so late Friday. She glanced up from her phone. Yeah, exactly. I pulled out my own phone and showed her the first photo. Monica with the guy in the suit at the Riverside Hotel, Friday night at 8:15. Her face went white. What is this? She asked, but her voice was already defensive. I was hoping you could tell me. I swiped to the next photo, then the next. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife has been sleeping with half the city. Ethan, I can explain. Really? Because I'd love to hear how you explain this. I showed her the photo of her kissing the guy in the parking lot. Or this. The restaurant photo with the male model type. Or any of these. Monica set down her phone with shaking hands. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. Then her expression hardened into something I'd never seen before. Cold. Calculating. Fine, she said. You want the truth? Yes, I've been seeing other people. We both know this marriage has been dead for years. Dead for years? News to me. I thought we were just going through a rough patch. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. A rough patch? Ethan, when was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you surprised me with anything other than grease stains on your clothes? So this is my fault? It's nobody's fault. We grew apart. It happens. I stood up, anger burning in my chest. Growing apart is when you stop talking about your day or forget anniversaries. Growing apart isn't sleeping with multiple guys while your husband works his ass off to pay for your lifestyle. Don't you dare take the moral high ground with me, Monica snapped. You think I don't know about your little coffee date with Natalie yesterday? My blood ran cold. How do you... She told me herself. Called me this morning all concerned and apologetic. Said she felt terrible about meeting with my husband behind my back. Monica's smile was vicious. She also mentioned how attracted she is to you, how she's been fantasizing about you for years. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. Natalie had called Monica? Why would she do that? Surprised? Monica continued. Did you really think you could sneak around with my friend without me finding out? At least I had the decency to keep my affairs away from people you know. We didn't sneak around. We had coffee. She showed me proof that you're a cheating. Watch yourself, Monica warned. You're not exactly innocent here. The moment you found out about my relationships, you ran straight to another woman, so don't pretend you're some wounded victim. I stared at her, this woman I'd been married to for 8 years, and realized I didn't know her at all. The Monica I'd fallen in love with had been warm and funny and kind. This woman was a stranger wearing my wife's face. I want a divorce, I said. Good. So do I. She picked up her phone and headed for the stairs. I'll have my lawyer contact you tomorrow. Monica. She stopped, but didn't turn around. Why? If you were so unhappy, why didn't you just leave? She looked back at me, and for a split second, I saw something that might have been regret. Because leaving is scary, and staying was easier. Until it wasn't. She went upstairs, and I heard the bedroom door close. I stood in our living room, surrounded by 8 years of shared memories, and felt absolutely nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. How did it go? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Why did you call her? Because I wanted her to know that you weren't alone anymore, that someone sees your worth, even if she doesn't. She thinks we're having an affair. Are we? I didn't answer that question. I couldn't. Because sitting in my empty house, with my marriage officially over and my future completely uncertain, the idea of being with someone who actually wanted me was the only thing keeping me sane. The next few weeks passed in a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and sleeping on my office couch because Monica had claimed the bedroom. She'd hired some hotshot attorney from downtown who specialized in protecting women's interests in divorce proceedings. I'd found a guy named Bill Patterson who worked out of a strip mall and charged reasonable rates. The difference in our legal representation pretty much summed up our marriage. She's going for half of everything, Bill told me during our second meeting. The house, the business, retirement accounts, even your tools. Can she do that? Michigan's a no-fault state. Adultery doesn't factor into asset division. Bill shuffled through his papers. But if we can prove she used marital funds for her affairs, we might be able to claw some of it back. I'd already given him copies of the credit card statements and bank records. Monica had spent thousands on her boyfriends. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, gifts I'd found receipts for but never saw her give to anyone. What about the photos? They help establish a pattern of deception, but honestly, Ethan, she's not hiding anything anymore. Her lawyer knows we have them. That was true. Monica had moved out of our bedroom and into the guest room, but she wasn't being subtle about her activities. She'd bring guys to the house, introduce them as friends, and disappear upstairs for hours. It was humiliating, but according to Bill, there wasn't much I could do about it. She's trying to provoke you, he explained. Don't take the bait. Document everything, but don't react. The moment you lose your temper or do something stupid, she wins. I was trying to follow his advice, but it was hard, especially when Monica brought home the guy from the restaurant photos, the one who looked like a male model. His name was Derek, and he drove a BMW that cost more than I made in 2 years. Nice place, Derek said, looking around our living room like he was thinking about buying it. Very authentic. Thanks, I replied, not trusting myself to say more. Monica appeared from the kitchen with 2 glasses of wine. The good wine, the stuff we'd been saving for special occasions. Derek's in marketing, she announced. He just landed the Chrysler account. Congratulations, I said. Derek smiled, showing teeth that were definitely professionally whitened. What do you do, Eddie? It's Ethan. I own an auto shop. Oh, like a mechanic? That's cool. Very blue collar. The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. I looked at Monica, waiting for her to defend me or at least change the subject. Instead, she smiled and took Derek's arm. We're going upstairs, she said. Try not to wait up. They left me standing in my own living room holding a beer and feeling like a stranger in my own life. My phone buzzed. Natalie. How are you holding up? Been better, I typed back. Want to talk? I'm at the studio, but I can leave. I almost said yes. The idea of seeing someone who actually wanted to spend time with me was tempting. But I could hear Monica and Derek upstairs, and leaving felt like admitting defeat. Rain check? I replied. Always. You're stronger than you know, Ethan. I wasn't feeling strong. I was feeling angry and humiliated and completely out of my depth. Monica had turned our divorce into psychological warfare, and I was losing badly. The next morning, Derek was still there. He came downstairs in his underwear and one of my t-shirts, helping himself to coffee from my machine. Morning, Eddie, he said cheerfully. Ethan. Right, sorry. Monica's still sleeping. She had a long night. He grinned like we were sharing some kind of joke. I wanted to punch him. Instead, I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Tell Monica I'll be at the shop, I said. Will do, buddy. I drove to work with my hands shaking from rage. This was my house, my coffee, my wife, and some pretty boy in a BMW was treating me like the help. At the shop, I threw myself into work. I had a 1967 Mustang that needed a complete engine rebuild, the kind of project that usually made me happy. Today, it just gave me something to hit with a wrench. Around noon, Ray Kowalski showed up. Ray owned the boxing gym where I'd been training for the past 5 years. He was 62, built like a fire hydrant, and had the kind of street wisdom that came from growing up in Detroit during the bad times. You look like shit, he said by way of greeting. Feel worse. Ray pulled up a stool and watched me work. Heard about the divorce. Sorry, kid. News travels fast. Small town. Smaller when you're getting screwed over by a cheating wife. I looked up from the engine. You know about that too? Like I said, small town. Monica's not exactly being discreet. Ray lit a cigarette, even though I'd asked him not to smoke in the shop 100 times. Question is, what are you going to do about it? What can I do? She's got a better lawyer, more money, and apparently no shame. You got something she don't have. What's that? Friends who give a damn. Ray took a long drag. You know why she's parading those guys around? She's trying to break you, make you do something stupid so her lawyer can paint you as the bad guy. My lawyer said the same thing. Your lawyer's right, but that don't mean you gotta take it lying down. I set down my wrench. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you stop playing defense and start playing offense. She wants to humiliate you? Turn it around. Make her the one who's embarrassed. How? Ray smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Kid, I've been in this neighborhood for 40 years. I know things about people they forgot they did. Your wife thinks she's smart, but she ain't smart enough to cover all her tracks. Ray, I can't ask you to... You ain't asking. I'm offering. Monica Cross thinks she can walk all over one of my guys? She's about to learn different. I should have said no. I should have told Ray to stay out of it, that I'd handle things through proper legal channels. But I was tired of being the victim, tired of watching my wife flaunt her affairs while I played by rules she'd thrown out the window. What do you have in mind? I asked. Ray's smile got wider. Leave that to me. Just be ready to move when I give you the signal. Ray's plan was simple and devastating. It turned out Monica's affair with Derek wasn't as secret as she thought. Derek was married, with 2 kids and a wife who had no idea her husband was sleeping around. Ray had learned this through his network of neighborhood contacts, people who noticed things and remembered faces. Derek's wife is named Jennifer, Ray explained when he came by the shop 3 days later. She works at the bank downtown, volunteers at their kids' school, goes to church every Sunday. Real wholesome type. How do you know all this? Her brother-in-law drinks at Murphy's Tavern, likes to complain about his stuck-up sister-in-law and her perfect husband. Ray handed me a manila envelope. Photos of Derek's family, his address, his wife's work schedule, everything you need. I opened the envelope reluctantly. Inside were printouts from social media, showing Derek with his family at various events, birthday parties, school functions, church gatherings. He looked like the perfect suburban dad. I can't destroy his family, I said. You ain't destroying nothing that ain't already broken. Guy's a cheater, just like your wife. His family deserves to know the truth. This feels wrong. Ray lit another cigarette and gave me a look that could have melted steel. You know what's wrong? What's wrong is your wife bringing that piece of shit into your house, into your bed, and making you feel like you're the problem. What's wrong is her spending your money on her boyfriends while you work 16-hour days to keep the lights on. He was right, but that didn't make it easier. Besides, Ray continued, you ain't gonna contact his wife directly. You're just gonna make sure she has access to information she should already have. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Ray had contacts at Jennifer's bank who could ensure she saw certain photos that would raise questions about her husband's after-work activities. No direct confrontation, no anonymous letters, just strategic information placement. What about Monica? I asked. What about her? She's going to know this came from me. Good. Let her know. Let her know that you ain't the pushover she thinks you are. That evening, Monica brought home a different guy. This one was younger, maybe 25, with the kind of sculpted abs that suggested he spent more time at the gym than at work. His name was Tyler, and he called Monica Babe every third sentence. Babe, this place is so retro, he said, looking around our living room. It has character, Monica replied, shooting me a pointed look. They ordered takeout from an expensive sushi place and ate it in the dining room while I heated up leftover pizza in the kitchen. I could hear them talking and laughing, Monica's voice higher and more animated than it had been with me in years. Your husband seems nice, Tyler said loud enough for me to hear. Ex-husband, Monica corrected. The divorce will be final soon. Cool. Must be weird, though, living with him while you're separated. It's temporary. I'm looking at condos downtown. This was news to me. Apparently, Monica was planning to take half of everything and upgrade her lifestyle. The thought made me angrier than I'd been in weeks. My phone buzzed with a text from Natalie. Thinking about you. How was your day? I stepped outside to call her back. The October air was getting colder, and I could see my breath in the porch light. Hi, she said, and just hearing her voice made me feel better. Hi yourself. Sorry I haven't called. Things have been complicated. I know. I drove by your house yesterday and saw the BMW. Then today, I saw a different car. You drove by my house? I was worried about you. Monica's really trying to hurt you, isn't she? I told her about Derek and Tyler, about Monica's plans to buy a downtown condo with money from our divorce settlement. Natalie listened without judgment, making sympathetic noises at all the right places. She's trying to break you, Natalie said when I finished. That's what Ray said. Ray's right, but she doesn't know you like I do. She doesn't know how strong you are. I don't feel strong. Then let me help you remember. There was something in her voice, a warmth that made my chest tight. Natalie, I know this is complicated. I know the timing is terrible, but I meant what I said at the cafe. I want you, Ethan. All of you. Your strength, your kindness, your stupid jokes about old movies. I want the man Monica was too blind to appreciate. Through the dining room window, I could see Monica feeding Tyler sushi with her fingers, both of them laughing like teenagers. She looked happy, happier than I'd seen her in years. She's moved on, I said. So can you. What if I'm not ready? Then I'll wait, but don't wait too long, okay? Life's too short to spend it being miserable. After we hung up, I sat on the porch for another hour, thinking about choices and consequences. Inside, Monica was starting her new life with a parade of younger men. Meanwhile, I was clinging to the wreckage of a marriage that had been over for months, maybe years. My phone rang. Ray. "It's done," he said without preamble. "What's done?" "Derek's wife knows. Got a call from my guy at the bank. She saw the photos, asked some questions, put two and two together. She's filing for divorce tomorrow." I felt a mixture of satisfaction and guilt. Derek had brought this on himself, but his kids were going to suffer for their father's mistakes. "There's more," Ray continued. "Turns out Derek ain't the only married one Monica's been seeing. That guy from the hotel photos, he's got a wife and 3 kids, lives over in Bloomfield Hills." "How do you know all this?" "Like I told you, kid. I know people who know things. Question is, what do you want to do with the information?" I looked through the window again. Monica and Tyler had moved to the couch and were making out like horny teenagers. In my house, on my furniture, with my wife. Ex-wife, I corrected myself. Soon-to-be ex-wife. "Let me think about it," I told Ray. "Don't think too long. Window for this kind of thing closes fast." That night, I lay on my office couch listening to Monica and Tyler upstairs. The guest room was directly above my makeshift bedroom, and they weren't being quiet about anything. Every sound was a reminder that my marriage was over, that Monica had moved on completely while I was still trying to process what had happened. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stay away from my husband, you bastard." It took me a moment to realize it was probably from Derek's wife. Word was getting around about Monica's affairs, and apparently some people thought I was involved. A few minutes later, another text, this one from Natalie. "Can't sleep, thinking about you." I stared at both messages for a long time before responding to Natalie. "Can't sleep either. Want company?" "Always. My place?" I grabbed my keys and left without saying goodbye to anyone. It was time to stop being a victim and start being something else. I wasn't sure what that something else was yet, but I knew it started with walking away from the wreckage of my old life and toward whatever came next. Natalie's apartment was everything Monica would have hated. Clean lines, minimal furniture, and a sense of peace that had been missing from my life for months. She answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back in a messy bun that somehow made her look even more beautiful. "You came," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "I needed to get out of there." "Another overnight guest?" "Tyler. He's young enough to be her little brother." Natalie poured us both wine, good wine that she'd opened just for me. We sat on her couch, not touching but close enough that I could smell her perfume, something light and floral that was nothing like Monica's heavy, expensive scents. "Ray told me about Derek's wife," I said. "Good. She deserved to know the truth. Monica's going to figure out it came from me. Let her. Maybe it's time she learned there are consequences for her actions." I took a sip of wine and studied Natalie's face. "Why are you doing this, really?" "Because I care about you. You barely know me. I know enough." She turned to face me fully. "I know you tip 20% even when the service is bad. I know you still call your mother every Sunday. I know you spent your last vacation helping your brother move instead of going somewhere fun." "How do you know about my brother?" "Monica complained about it at her birthday party. Said you were too generous for your own good, like it was a character flaw." That sounded like Monica. She'd always been annoyed by what she called my people-pleasing tendencies. "What else did she say about me?" Natalie hesitated. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes." "She said you were boring, predictable, that you had no ambition beyond fixing cars and watching old movies." Natalie's voice was gentle, but the words still stung. "She said she felt like she was married to her father." I set down my wine glass. Her father's a good man. I know. That's what made it so awful to hear. We sat in silence for a while, processing. Outside, the city hummed with late-night traffic and distant sirens. Normal sounds of normal life continuing while mine fell apart. "Can I ask you something?" Natalie said. "Anything." "When did you know it was over? The marriage, I mean." I thought about it. Honestly, probably months ago, maybe longer. We stopped talking about anything real, stopped making plans together, stopped... I trailed off. Stopped being intimate? Yeah, she always had excuses. Too tired, too stressed, too busy. I thought it was just a phase. While she was getting her needs met elsewhere. The bluntness of it hit hard, but it was true. Monica had checked out of our marriage emotionally and physically while keeping me around for financial security and social respectability. "I feel like such an idiot," I said. "You're not an idiot. You're trusting. There's a difference." Natalie moved closer on the couch, close enough that our knees touched. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure." "The first time I met you, at Monica's work party 2 years ago, you spent 20 minutes talking to the janitor about his grandson's baseball team. You remembered his name, asked about his family, treated him like he mattered. Monica spent the entire party networking and schmoozing, but you were the only person there who seemed genuinely interested in other people. That's when you knew you were attracted to me? Watching me talk to a janitor? That's when I knew you were different. The attraction came later when I realized Monica didn't appreciate what she had." Natalie reached over and touched my face, her fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "You're a good man, Ethan. Don't let her make you forget that." I should have pulled away. I was still married, still technically living with Monica, still in the middle of a messy divorce. But Natalie's touch was warm and real, and I was tired of being alone. "This is complicated," I said. "It doesn't have to be. Monica will use it against me in court. Only if she finds out, and only if you let her." I looked into Natalie's eyes, searching for doubt or hesitation. I found neither. What I found was want and warmth and the promise of something better than what I'd been settling for. "Are you sure about this?" I asked. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. When she kissed me, it was nothing like the perfunctory pecks Monica had given me over the past year. This was hungry and desperate and full of all the longing I'd been trying to ignore. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Stay," she whispered. I stayed. The next morning, I woke up in a bed that smelled like vanilla and sunshine, with a woman who was genuinely happy to see me. Natalie made coffee and scrambled eggs while I showered, and we ate breakfast like a normal couple having a normal morning. "I have to go home," I said eventually. "I know." "Monica's going to ask where I was." "Tell her the truth. Tell her you were with someone who appreciates you. That'll start a war." Natalie smiled, but there was steel in it. "Good. Maybe it's time for a war." When I got home, Monica was in the kitchen making mimosas. Tyler was gone, but there was a new guy at the breakfast table. This one was older, maybe 40, with the kind of expensive casual clothes that screamed money. "Ethan, this is Richard," Monica said without looking up from the orange juice. "Richard, this is my soon-to-be ex-husband." Richard stood and offered his hand. "Nice to meet you. Monica's told me a lot about you." "I'm sure she has." Monica finally looked at me and her eyes were sharp. "You were out all night." "Yes, I was." "Where?" I thought about Natalie's advice about starting a war, with someone who wanted me there. Monica's face went white, then red. "You're seeing someone." "Yes, I am." "Who?" I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in weeks. "Someone who thinks I'm worth her time." Richard looked between us like he was watching a tennis match. "Maybe I should go." "No," Monica said quickly. "You don't need to go anywhere. Ethan's the one who should leave. Actually, this is still my house until the divorce is final. You're welcome to leave if my presence makes you uncomfortable. Monica slammed down the orange juice container. You bastard! You self-righteous bastard! How dare you judge me when you're doing the exact same thing? I'm not doing the same thing. I'm not sneaking around or lying about it. I'm not spending our money on someone else or bringing them into our bed. I'm being honest, which is more than I can say for you. Honest? You want honest? Fine. I've been cheating on you for over a year because being married to you is like being married to a piece of furniture. You're boring and predictable and you have no ambition. I settled for you because I thought you were safe, but safe is just another word for boring. Her words hit like physical blows, but they also felt like a release. Finally, the truth was out. No more pretending, no more trying to save something that had been dead for months. Thank you, I said. For what? For finally being honest, for showing me who you really are. I left them in the kitchen and went to pack a bag. I was done living in the wreckage of my marriage. It was time to start building something new. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, moving arrangements, and emotional upheaval. I rented a small apartment above Murphy's Tavern where Ray held court most evenings. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and Monica couldn't parade her boyfriends through it. The divorce proceedings were getting ugly. Monica's lawyer was pushing for spousal support on top of half the assets, claiming she'd sacrificed her career advancement to support my business. It was complete bullshit, but in family court, bullshit often carried the same weight as facts. She's going for the throat, Bill Patterson explained during one of our meetings. Wants the house, half the business, ongoing alimony, and she's claiming emotional distress. Emotional distress? Says your affair with Natalie caused her psychological trauma. I almost laughed. What about her affairs? What about the emotional trauma she caused me? Michigan's a no-fault state, remember? Her affairs don't legally matter unless we can prove financial misconduct. We have the credit card statements, which show maybe $3,000 in questionable charges over 6 months. Her lawyer's arguing those were legitimate business expenses. I was getting screwed, and we both knew it. Monica had played the game better, covered her tracks more carefully, and hired a lawyer who specialized in taking men to the cleaners. But Ray had other ideas. Forget the lawyers, he said one evening at Murphy's. Lawyers fight with papers and procedures. We're going to fight with information. What kind of information? Ray slid a manila envelope across the bar. Remember that married guy from the hotel photos? Turns out he's got more to lose than just his marriage. I opened the envelope reluctantly. Inside were photos of Monica with a man I recognized from the hotel surveillance shots. But these were different. These showed them at what looked like a construction site, exchanging envelopes. What am I looking at? City councilman named Robert Hastings, married father of 3, up for re-election next year. He's been taking kickbacks from developers in exchange for favorable zoning decisions. How do you know that? Because one of those developers is my cousin Sal, and Sal don't like being extorted. Ray lit a cigarette and grinned. Hastings has been using Monica as a go-between. She delivers the cash, he delivers the votes. I stared at the photos. Monica's involved in political corruption? Up to her pretty little neck, and the best part? She's been using your joint bank account to launder some of the money. This changed everything. If Monica was involved in criminal activity, it would torpedo her divorce case and potentially land her in prison. What do you want me to do with this? Nothing. You're going to leave that to me and my contacts at the FBI. The FBI? Kid, you think I spent 40 years in this neighborhood without making friends in law enforcement? I got people who owe me favors, people who've been waiting for a chance to nail Hastings for years. I felt a mixture of excitement and fear. This could solve all my problems, but it could also destroy Monica's life completely. She's still my wife, I said. She stopped being your wife the minute she started screwing around. Now she's just someone who's trying to steal your life savings. Ray was right, but it still felt like crossing a line. Then I thought about Monica's plan to take half of everything I'd worked for, her claims of emotional distress, her parade of boyfriends through our house. Do it, I said. The FBI raid happened on a Thursday morning. I was at the shop when Ray called with the news. They got her at the office, he said, barely containing his glee. Hastings, too. Perp walked them both out in handcuffs. I felt sick and vindicated at the same time. What happens now? Now she's got bigger problems than divorce court. Federal corruption charges carry serious time, especially when you can prove money laundering. By evening, it was all over the local news. City councilman arrested in bribery scandal. Monica's name was mentioned as a co-conspirator, along with her photo from some charity event where she looked beautiful and innocent. My phone rang constantly, reporters wanting comments, friends offering sympathy, Monica's family demanding explanations I couldn't give. I turned it off and drove to Natalie's apartment. She was waiting with wine and dinner and no questions about where I'd been or what I'd done. We ate in comfortable silence, watching the news coverage on her television. "How do you feel?" she asked finally. "I don't know. Relieved, I guess. And guilty." "You didn't make her break the law." "I know. But I helped expose her." "She exposed herself. You just stopped protecting her from the consequences." Natalie was right, but it would take time for the guilt to fade. Monica had made her choices, and those choices had led her to this moment. I hadn't forced her to get involved with a corrupt politician or to use our bank account for money laundering. "What happens to us now?" I asked. "Now we stop hiding. Now we build something real together, something based on honesty instead of lies." She moved closer on the couch, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her green eyes. "I love you, Ethan. I know it's fast and complicated and probably crazy, but I love you." I'd been waiting to hear those words for so long that I'd almost forgotten what they sounded like. Not the obligatory "love you too" that Monica had given me out of habit, but real love, the kind that made your chest tight and your hands shake. "I love you too," I said, and meant it completely. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Monica pled guilty to money laundering and conspiracy charges in exchange for 18 months in federal prison and full restitution. She signed over her claim to the house and business without argument, probably grateful that I wasn't pressing for additional damages. I never saw her again after the courthouse. Her lawyer handled all the paperwork, and she was transferred to a minimum security facility in Ohio to serve her sentence. Natalie and I were married the following spring, in a small ceremony at Murphy's Tavern, with Ray as my best man. We honeymooned in Ireland, where we drank good whiskey and made plans for the future. I expanded the auto shop into classic car restoration, just like I'd always dreamed. Natalie opened a second yoga studio. We bought a house together, a place with good light and room for the family we were planning. Sometimes late at night, I thought about Monica and wondered how different things might have been if she'd just been honest about her unhappiness, if she'd asked for a divorce instead of starting affairs, if she'd chosen to leave instead of choosing to cheat and steal and lie. But those were just thoughts, shadows of a life I'd left behind. My real life was with Natalie, building something honest and real and worth protecting. Monica had taught me what love wasn't. Natalie was teaching me what love could be. And for the first time in years, I was genuinely happy.